Welcome to our podcast for college Catholics, where we discuss faith and spirituality from a Catholic perspective. I'm Father Patrick, and as this podcast is directed toward young adults, particularly college students, I try to bring guests to tell their story, whether it's marriage or priesthood or religious life. So today, I welcome Sister Mercedes of the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. Sister Mercedes was raised in Brooklyn, New York. She studied international relations and Spanish at the University of Southern California. She worked for a Manhattan-based nonprofit, planning trips and bringing medical supplies and doctors to Cuba and Nicaragua prior to entering religious life. She entered the Dominican Sisters and professed her final vows in 2019. After teaching at a high school in Arizona and serving as a librarian for the Pontifical North American College in Rome, she was called to serve as the Vocations Director for her community. So, Sister Mercedes, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful to be here. It's a blessing to be able to come here and participate in this wonderful podcast. So Thank you.
Yes, it's a grace to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been trying to have, I've had consecrated people, like religious men and women, but not sisters.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is the time.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I get to be the one.
You're the first one.
Great.
Yeah. So how have you been doing, and is there any interesting anecdote of recent days that you've been through?
Yeah, it's, I'm doing really well. It's really wonderful because we're a teaching community. So we're going into the whole phase of the year where the sisters are getting out of school. And little by little, we're having sisters trickle back to the mother house, which is really fun because we're a community of about 140.
Wow.
There are 40 of us at the mother house throughout the school year, but now the other 100 who have been teaching all over the country or in Rome. We're coming back from the summer, but it's kind of a revolving door because we have sisters who are studying for their masters over the summer or home visits or doing vacation Bible schools. So every day there's someone new and then they leave, or they're here and then they leave. So it's kind of funny to keep track. But as someone, I travel a lot as Vocation Director. So it's also really fun to kind of be in and out and then see who's here. And then when I come back, it's somewhere else. Right. But it's really fun.
And all the sisters, most of them except you, have two names.
Right.
So do you know all the 280 names?
I know all the sisters. I know them all. Everyone's very surprised by that, but we're a very close community, even though we all go out teaching. But that's a beautiful part. When you first enter, it's very overwhelming because there's one of you, and there are all these sisters, and there are a lot of names. But over time, especially as you go on mission with sisters and you're teaching, it you end up getting to know the sisters.
Wonderful. Well, I invited you to to share your vocation story. So, would you like to tell a little bit how you grew up and your college experience, and then how is it that you decided to enter religious life?
Yeah, how did I end up with a habit in front of you right now? What's going on?
Right.
So you mentioned in the beginning. So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My parents are from the Dominican Republic, so they were born and raised there. My grandparents were always there. So I'd spend summers down there with my grandparents growing up, which is always really wonderful. My parents actually live there now again. They retired back, which is really fun. I'll be visiting them in a few weeks, which is also very exciting.
So they moved to the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
And do you have sisters or brothers?
I have one older brother.
And he's also in the Dominican Republic?
He lives in Colorado.
Okay.
Yes, he lives in Colorado with his wife and little girls. And so I grew up in a very very Latin family, as people would imagine. Very loud and happy, and I have a lot of cousins. My father is number 15 of 18.
Wow.
So I have a lot of cousins, and we're all very, very close. And we always grew up very close to each other, so we'd always be in each other's houses, and everyone was just really great. But we also had a very Latin cultural Catholicism, so I never really knew the person of Christ in terms of growing up in my faith. But I knew one of the greatest gifts I was given, even with not necessarily knowing the person of Christ growing up, one of the greatest gifts I've been given is I knew I was loved. And I always knew that I was loved within my family, within my immediate family, my larger, extended family. And just knowing that everything that they did affected me and what I did affected them. And so being a part of something bigger than myself is just an essential part of identity, actually. And that's why in some aspects, obviously, the family is the first church, as we say in the church, because I am part of the church, the body of Christ. Right. But the way that I am able to understand and assimilate that within myself was built upon understanding myself and my family. And so having that kind of foundation was essential for me later on when I came back to the faith and I encountered Christ, as having that innate, being loved. Right?
So you would say that you you were raised in a good environment, a family environment, but as far as the faith, it was not super solid.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, I knew the rosary really well,
Good.
and we go to Mass every Sunday.
Right. You have to do that.
Right. Exactly. And to me, really, Mass was just like another family reunion. I'd see all my aunts and uncles, at the end of Mass, and we would just say hi again, so but I didn't know that it was Jesus. I didn't know the Eucharist. I didn't know him. I didn't know why we did any of these things. Even like throughout all my catechesis, I received all my sacraments, but I didn't have that like a thread of Christ really, so I had that like this beautiful kind of skeleton of like all this cultural beauty. But I didn't have the heart. I didn't have who the person is. Right.
Right.
And my parents, they came to America and they really harped upon, do well in school. We came to America, you had better lives, so do well in school. So my brother and I, that's what we did. We just like went along dutifully, did well in school.
Good.
And so he and we both got full scholarships to go to boarding schools in the Northeast.
Nice.
And then through that, then we also, went off into college. So for me in my boarding school, faith and family were the same, with my parents, go to Mass on Sundays.
Right.
And I was at boarding school, so I wasn't with my family, so therefore I didn't have to go to Mass anymore.
Right.
So it was common amongst, young people. So the not knowing, right?
Right.
The knowing but not knowing. Like I knew I should go to Mass, but I didn't, I figured like I didn't have to. I didn't want to because I wasn't with my family.
And also to some extent, we don't, because I had a more or less similar experience being from Argentina, more or less. And I think that what happens is that everybody understands that we understand why we go to Mass, and therefore nobody tells us why we go to Mass.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we don't know why we go to Mass.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
And then when it becomes, other people aren't going to Mass, then you don't go to Mass. That's actually kind of what happened with me. And it's amazing because my boarding school, we had to get like chapel credits, and so you'd have to go. It was not like a Catholic or a Christian, boarding school. It was just secular prep school, and we had to attend, some sort of religious service, right?
Okay.
At least once a trimester, and I never once went to Catholic Mass. I went to everything else, everything else, but I did not go to Mass for 4 years in boarding school.
Wow.
That's crazy. It ended up well. I'm sitting here as a consecrated bride of Christ and I have it, but that was not a good thing. So don't do that, everybody.
Right.
And the thing is also, so then when I was in high school, I kind of adopted very much the intellectual, like, there's no room for God in, in studies or, within education. Like there's no room for him. Like it's all about like the liberal education, liberal
science.
Like culture and all that. Yes. So then I went to college and I went to USC in Los Angeles. And that was also a funny thing. My parents just said, you don't know anybody in California. Why are you going to California? It's like, well, why not go to California?
Right.
Why not?
Everybody wants to cross the country to the other side.
I know.
People from California want to come to the East Coast.
Exactly right. Exactly. So I figured I'm always going to end up back in New York. I love New York. So why not go spend 4 years in California and get to know Los Angeles? And that's what I did. And I loved USC. But it was interesting. When I started, I wanted to start in journalism because I just wanted, I love talking. So just wanted to talk to people, and be out and kind of do this whole, like change the world type of thing, but really like be there and represent people. And I started it and I just really realized like there is no truth here.
Right.
I honestly, you hear about that. But once I started my classes and I started going into it, I thought, wow, like I can't do this. Like there is no truth whatsoever in the media. I mean, and this was almost 20 years ago, this was 20 years ago. So I can't even imagine.
It's getting worse.
Yeah, I can't even imagine now. This was before, social media and all that was really huge.
So when you say that there was no truth, because one could say that there is a truth that they teach, but it's the wrong one. But sometimes there is all pure relativism. It doesn't really matter. Anything matters. Nothing matters except to get my story out there and get some money in return or something.
Yes. And so
that's what you would say was happening.
I would. Yes, actually. And I wouldn't have been able to pinpoint it as relativism. It absolutely was, but it was that aspect of like buying. It was all just like the selling whatever you wanted to sell, like you said,
a demagogy,
exactly,
so to speak.
Absolutely, exactly. So that's all that it was. And when I realized that every single message was that it just filtered through money, everything spoken was just filtered through money, and I wasn't, I wasn't practicing, but as just like a human person,
right?
Like I could not reconcile my life living without truth.
Right.
But I didn't know what that really was at that point, but I knew this wasn't it. And that I could not like sell my life to that. So I dropped journalism. And then I thought maybe public relations, but just as fake.
That's through college you decided to change?
Yeah. So this is when I first started. And then within freshman year, I tried to do public relations. I did an internship and I was like, nope, just as fake. It's just selling some like a product except for, a message. Right. So I ended up majoring in international relations, as mentioned. And I knew I wanted to do Spanish. I wanted to do something in Latin America or something like that. So I thought Latin American broadcast, but no. So in Latin American international relations, it was actually a really beautiful fit, I thought, because I would still be interacting with people and to the extent of then working with them in a very specific and intentional way. Either, changing the world as an ambassador is like the big thing, but in reality, it's like different organizations and seeing how that can work together. And I loved international relations. I got to study abroad twice. Like I had a really beautiful experience in my time at college at USC.
Wonderful.
But I also was very worldly. So I started college without faith, and I didn't have faith when I left either. Okay. So I really fell off into the Los Angeles Hollywood culture, and it just I wasn't in a good place when I finished, and knowing that after college, so I didn't know what to do with myself. I knew I couldn't go back to Los Angeles. I just knew there was something wrong, right? And I went home to where my parents were, and I just thought, they weren't in New York at the time. But I was like, I think I need to go to New York, but I have no idea how. I didn't have a job. I'm not going to go freeload off a family. I didn't have a job. I didn't know what to do. So I had this moment where I was just like, God, I don't know what to do. Show me what to do. I think I have to go to New York, but I have no idea how. I just actually acknowledged God existed in my life, for a moment. He was bigger than I am, and I had nothing. Right. And so the next day, I got a phone call from somebody that I met in an internship in New York the summer before. And he asked what I was doing, and I said nothing. And he was just like, why don't you come to New York and intern for me for the summer? We'll see how it goes. Then I got to go. The Lord knew. So ended up back in New York. So when I moved back to New York, I moved in with a cousin, with my aunt and uncle, with my cousin Christine. She's amazing. She's like older sister to me, and she's always had a very alive faith. Growing up, just really beautiful encounter with Christ when she was in middle school. And since then, just on fire, serving the church and youth ministry and all of that, and she'd always invite me to youth ministry things growing up. And I'd say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not going to go. And he said, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So I could never understand that about her, though. It was just what? We got along so well, obviously. We were so alike. But then the Jesus thing, I was like, what? What is this Jesus thing that's all about Jesus? And always divergent in that point, And, I moved in. Even as an adult, she invited me to adult ministry things. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go out with my friends to the city. So I still brought my party life to New York City, Right. And, but she was very persistent. I'm telling you, my cousin Christy, she is wise. She's a woman of the Lord because she started bringing her ministry friends over to the house.
Oh, wow. Smart.
Exactly.
So now there's a group of people, not only one.
Right, exactly. That's how you do this, right? Because I love people. I love to talk. Right. I'm going to talk to people in my house. So through just interactions with them is how I just ended up really encountering a different kind of love. I knew that these people loved me and received me in a different way than my other kind of outside more secular party friends. Right. And I could just tell. And that was something that resonated with me. And so through them, I realized that people who believe in Jesus are normal.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Right. And they could be friendly.
Yeah, exactly. They were just normal and friendly and received me. So that was that began kind of the turning point in my life as I moved forward into getting into the faith.
Very good. And how did you go then because then obviously you started participating in the young adult group, young adults, and then probably attending mass a bit more, and then maybe they invited to a rosary or adoration. How did you go from there to the religious vocation?
So I ended up basically when I first started hanging out with them, it was that moment of realization, okay, it's their life is different. And they eventually invited me to go on a retreat. And they tricked me to go on the retreat. I just want to say, They told me they hadn't seen me in a while to hang out, so come on the retreat. I didn't know is that when you go on retreat, you're on a retreat.
Right,
You're not
right.
hanging out.
Right.
So I went on the retreat, and it was I ended up really encountering Christ like in a powerful way
Nice.
on that retreat.
Very good.
And it was in the Eucharist, and I just like understood his love for me. And I knew the only thing in the way of that was me. And the only thing I could do really is just give whatever I have to him and live a
Right.
life like with him.
Right. Open your heart to Christ.
Absolutely.
John Paul II, open wide the doors to Christ.
Mm-hmm. And so, that's what I did, praise
Right.
Jesus. And I later found out that was Divine Mercy Sunday, which is also my
Nice.
feast day. And I ended up spending all my time with my cousin Christy and her friends after that. Now, through them, I started also spending time with and hanging out with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal in New York. That was my first time seeing young, habited religious that were normal. And like here in the States, because I always see that in Santo Domingo, like going to Dominican Republic, you'd always see, there are a lot of religious, in Latin America.
Okay.
So I'd always see them there and lots of family friends. But it's a very different life from my life, in America.
Right.
Then seeing the CFRs, it was very different. I was like, oh, these, like, now it's religious are normal,
Right.
now they're here in the States and they're my age and, So
Wow.
that witness was different. And I saw the Sisters of Life as well, but mostly the friars would volunteer at the soup kitchens, and do
Right.
things like that.
Right.
So for me, that kind of say it is that, like, there was a joy in there, like in them, like in that
Right.
consecration that corresponded with the joy in my heart. I didn't know was there, because I dated normally, right? And you just figure I haven't met the right guy, which is true.
Right.
But I hadn't, right? But like that joy did something different to me, like a bubble in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
Like I would see them and it was like, there's something different here and it resonates with me. And I didn't know what it was, but I figured, you know what? I'm not a Franciscan.
Right.
I'm not a sister of life. So I don't have a vocation.
Right.
Done. Right. My discernment's done. Right?
Right.
That's all you have to do. Great. Check that box.
So that was your
Done.
quick discernment.
Yep. That was my quick discernment. I was done.
Okay.
And but it's still kind of back there. I couldn't ignore it.
So
So-
what you couldn't ignore was, what would you say that was? Because
Yeah.
just to clarify to
Yeah.
those who are listening, right? There's something going on.
Yes.
What is that you felt that was going on?
What I couldn't ignore was that I always returned to it. Even though I didn't have that, what was in front of me, like what resonated, it was still like would rattle. Like that feeling that like the joy was different in my heart and wasn't complete was there.
Mm-hmm.
It would still kind of, when I see them, like that little bubble in my heart, like it was still real. But I just figured, well, I was done. That's what young people do. We live like a sacramental life. We like see religious. I'm not one of these religious that I'm here, so I don't know them. So I'm going to move on.
Right.
I mean, now it's like dating. It's like, okay, well, here are these guys. They're great. They're not really for me. So moving on, right?
Right.
But the Lord knows. And I ended up going to the March for Life with the friars and my cousins.
Uh-huh.
And
Nice.
I saw some sisters dressed in white from afar, and some postulants dressed in blue. And I was looking at this white habit, and I was thought, oh, that's nice.
Right.
I haven't seen that habit before. That's really interesting. So I just figured, okay, I'm just going to go read the banner of the community because, like if you talk to the sisters, you become a sister. And that wasn't the plan, So I'm just going to read it's safe to read the
So
banner.
you don't want to be too close.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't going to
Find
go
out,
too
but
close.
not too close.
Exactly. So I go in and I read the banner. It said Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, Dominican. I don't know what that means, but I'm Dominican. Maybe it counts,
Right.
And then a Sisters of Mary, like Our Lady. Like you don't get better than Our Lady. And Mother of the Eucharist. The Eucharist. Like this is, if you don't like this name, you're not Catholic. Like everything is great in this name. And then I saw Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I thought, nope. All right, I'm not going to Michigan. I'm not leaving New York. So that's fine.
Right.
I got to check another box. Discernment done. But I could have stopped thinking about the community the whole way home. We were driving back to the city. And I was like, I could have stopped thinking about those sisters. So then I went home and I went to Google and I read the whole website, everything the sisters pray, like whatever it is their devotions are, like wherever they teach. And, I didn't even want to be a teacher. Like and one of the things I love is history, but I did not want to major in history. All you can do with history degree is teach. That's not what I was going to do.
Right.
So I ended up like I'm just going to email the Vocation Director, I was going to send her a little email to get a packet of information.
Was it Sister Joseph Andrew?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so we have 3 discernment retreats a year. And so they're bigger discernment retreats. They're really, they're amazing discernment retreats. And they're retreats where it's just a space to enter into general discernment. So it's not a come and see, just to like meet the sisters. We have retreat priests that come and we have talks and a lot of other young women who are also just in the space of openness.
Right.
And then all night adoration. And that's the key, is all night adoration.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw these retreats and I was thinking, okay, the February retreat was the closest retreat. And that was too close. I had my birthday weekend. I had to buy a plane ticket. It was March for Lifetime. So that wasn't going to happen. The spring retreat couldn't go because I was going to be in Nicaragua for work. All right. Mm-hmm. So then November sounded like a good idea. It's like people say it takes a long time to discern. Apparently I'm discerning now, like whatever that means. And so I figured I was fine.
Were you speaking with someone like a priest or something at least a little bit or not?
I wasn't actually.
Okay, so it was just on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just
a self-directed discernment.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, the Lord does it exactly as you need it.
Right.
And He's going to use people in your life. Like the key is a sacramental life. That is the baseline for everything. Mm-hmm. And like praise God, that's what I was able to be living at the time. Mm-hmm. And that's all the graces flow. And after a few email exchanges with Sister Joseph Andrew, the Vocation Director, I ended up somehow on the Delta website buying a plane ticket for February to Detroit.
February, so yeah, quick.
Somehow, exactly. I ended up coming on the February discernment retreat.
The middle of winter.
Yep.
Snow all over.
Yep. I somehow was here in Ann Arbor or in Michigan, and when I came on the retreat, I saw the sisters with the retreatants, and it was just like, this beautiful, like, way they loved the retreatants. And it was just like that, yes, like I can do that. And seeing the sisters with each other and like the beautiful love that the sisters have for each other and that like sorrow fraternal love. Like, yes, I can do that too. And seeing them pray, it was like, no, actually I was made for that. Because it was kind of this realization that I was like, this is how I was made to love. I just love to love. I love people. I love to love. And I knew that, and just like in the knowing that if I give that love to Christ, like just give it to Him, right? He can then perfect it. Right. And then give it to everyone I encounter. And then I get to love them in that. Like, and that's what like that spiritual motherhood is. And I wouldn't be able to say like spiritual motherhood, but like I knew there was this economy of love, and that's how He wanted me to live it. And it was like, as a Dominican sister, Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, in this like fire of truth, like just seeing like the sister's zeal and like desire to like give all for God, but like that they know Him, like that they know the Lord, they know the truth, was really kind of what resonated with me and like the particular way of this community and the charism.
Wonderful. So, and then did you decide there to enter? Did you
actually
take
did.
a while? Okay. And then so that was February.
Yes, that was in February, and I got my application papers at that retreat actually.
Oh wow!
So it was a fast. This is a fast sermon, everyone.
Right.
Anyway, so the thing is, it was so fast that also my family had no idea.
Oh wow!
So so my parents didn't know, and so I had my dream job out of college, right? So this is my dream job. I was working for a nonprofit, and we did medical donations for Cuba and Nicaragua. So we bring doctors down to La Habana, and then to Managua. And it was just, it was really my dream job. I would plan the trips, then go down with the medicines and with the doctors. So it was
wonderful.
Beautiful work. And so that week after I got the application papers, I was going to Cuba. I was coming back from Cuba. I was going to Cuba and coming back to Miami. And my parents were coming back from Dominican Republic, also to Miami. So I asked if we can just spend some time together, have a layover at my uncle's house. And so I decided I was going to tell them that.
Wow.
Because
that's a shock.
I know, because I didn't want to tell them over the phone.
Of course.
It kind of felt like his in-person conversation.
Absolutely.
So I told them then, and it was just, it was very surprising.
Right.
It was like, my dad was just saying, piénsalo bien, just like think about it, But I just knew. And also my parents are so good because they understand as far as they can understand, but they also love me so much and know that I'm going for a greater good, I'm grateful for the greater good that is like for God, right? And though it's still actually is a little bit difficult for them to understand in a lot of ways,
Of course.
it's still beautiful because they know that like they love me, they trust me, but also they see that I'm not like, especially after entering like different. Like that's the biggest fear is like your child's not going to be loved, or
Right.
going to be alone and isolated, and all
Right.
that is like just like what. Because unknown, it's the unknown. People don't know what it's like to be a sister, right? Like they don't know what religious life is like,
and they don't know how to process it.
Yes.
And they are not always, but many times parents may be afraid that they're going to lose their child, right? And that's completely not true,
right?
They may see them less, perhaps.
Yes, right.
But even then, sometimes they don't see them less. They see them less when they get married or they travel somewhere else abroad. So
right, yes, and I mean. And really, I say that's true for most families, even families who may have grown up really fostering, religious vocations in their children and really like bringing them along in that. That's still a true for family. I think really most parents, any parent, it's like you still have this moment where it's like you don't know what your son or your daughter like is going into.
Yeah.
Like what is this life and this unknown that even for a young person who's entering religious life, they have to enter into that mystery too.
Right.
It's the same type of jump as well. But we have the excitement of entering. We had like the excitement of actually going into something new. And our families kind of have that hole, and that's a real thing that is real and true. And that should be acknowledged.
Right. I remember the case of Saint Therese of Lisieux. Her dad, when she decided to enter the convent, she stayed for a while with him to take care of him. But then at the end, when she entered, she said, only God only God can ask a sacrifice as this one to me, right? So, and only to God I'm willing to give this sacrifice, right? So, it is still a sacrifice, and He is blessed. Right?
I know exactly, and that's beautiful. It just shows like that's what the human heart is, no matter what that sacrifice is there. And for my parents to see me afterwards is like joyful and so loved by the sisters. And not like some different version of myself, not like, hello, mother and father, how are you doing? It's like I'm still myself and more myself, really.
Right.
And then they can also grow to love the sisters, which is also beautiful. So they cook for the sisters whenever, they come visit. We always just like really enjoy making Dominican food and doing all of
140
this.
sisters? Or a little
smaller
community?
Mission. We have our small missions, yeah.
Okay.
But when my parents came to visit, for my birthday a couple years ago when I was at the mother house, and they brought like all of these like Dominican like dulces, like sweets and like all this stuff, and laid it all out and found a place that made Dominican cakes out here and got a Dominican cake. And my dad he does a really wonderful job. He loved just setting it up for the sisters.
Do you do empanadas?
We call pastelitos.
Pastelitos.
Yeah.
Okay. And then dulce de leche? What
Dulce
do you
de
call
leche.
Dulce de leche.
We have lots of different dulces though, like dulce de naranja, de cajuil. We have like a few different types as well.
Nice. Very good. And what were the most decisive moments, would you say, where you realized God was actually calling you to this? And because one thing is to say, I could do that. I think it would be nice. I love the sisters, or like in my case, I love the priests. It's great. The religions are awesome, and I would like to, but when there's a moment where we have to say, well, I'm going to do this because God wants me to do it. Right. So how would you describe that moment, if there was such a moment?
Yeah. Well, I think it's between those, like the two kind of points in my journey of, I want to say discernment, but just of, prayer life, of like the beginning of the openness to encounter the joy in the friars and the sisters, and then followed by the openness to encounter the economy of love that the Lord had for me within the retreat, because both of those were ways in which the way that my heart was made to love was tapped, right? Because as your vocation is how the Lord made your heart to love,
right?
Whoever it is, right? And it's in those ways that the Lord really like touched that for me. It was like, hey, seeing love in these people, and by acknowledging like there is something there, and there's something for me there as well. Like I knew that I was there. I was kind of afraid of it, right? Like I didn't know how to process it or what to do with it. But I acknowledged that it was real, right? And the moments when you can actually look at God's grace straight and acknowledge it are huge. Those are shed water moments. It's like I can see this grace and I know it's real and I acknowledge it. I don't know what to do with it. I'm open to it. Like I desire generosity of my heart to to really like, take it in, but I don't know what to do. The problem is, then I took away that generosity, right? Then I was like, I don't know what to do with it. So I'm not going to discern. I don't know what to do. I'm going to walk away.
Right.
But then that second moment of like that encounter of the economy of love was when I realized like, no, like I need to go out of myself. Like I need to give myself in this. Like he's not just asking me to look at this grace and acknowledge it and know that it's beautiful. He wants me to like jump into it, enter into it and give it all to him. And so it was like having like those two sides and realizing it's not just a matter of acknowledging and loving him in that grace, but like to run to him and run to that grace and then be able to like go into, okay, like he's doing this with me. I desire this. I'm going to, apply. I'm going to further discern this. I'm going to keep on talking to a sister. I'm going to talk to a priest about it now, right?
Right.
I'm going to do a little bit more to really engage my heart with that grace and engage my heart with the grace that I'm moving towards in discernment.
Very good. Like it's similar to the process we could compare to the process of faith. In faith, you have a moment where you intellectually acknowledge the truth of the Catholic faith, the reasons why it is the most reasonable faith, why it makes sense, why it's so good, why it can be revealed, why Jesus Christ is God. But you still have to say, well, I want to believe. Yes. I want to say yes to these truths that I see. And in a similar way with a religious vocation, right? So we can see elements, we can see signs that point toward the fact that this might be for you, that this could be for you, that this is something you could do, and then there's the step forward or the decision to say, I want to offer my life to Christ.
Yes.
In a sense, because it has to be an offering, a voluntary offering, right?
It has to be, yes.
Christ wants a voluntary sacrifice,
Absolutely.
not something forced. That's good. So what would you recommend to a young man or a young woman who are considering religious life, but at the same time, they see these things, the good things, but they see also the good things of marriage. They see they're more inclined to marriage, and others may say, well, I'm too attached to my family. I don't want to leave my family, or even sometimes they depend on me because I am working and so forth. What would you say? What tips would you give?
Well, this is my big thing, Father. Okay, there is no program for discernment. Everyone just wants to have like this laid out idea of like, this is what I have to do to discern. This is what it's going to be. Like if I do this and do that, then like I'm going to find out on my own time, or I need to know right now because I need to know whether or not I need to apply for grad school. I need to know right now because I need to know whether or not, I need to move into my new apartment. Right. No, guess what? Not true. And the thing is, like, I know that you also like with me, that it's just prayer. It really is prayer and a sacramental life. It's like one of those things like, you know what? Like the Lord gave us the sacraments. Right. And if he wanted to give us more than the sacraments, he would have given us more than the sacraments. Right. So everything else flows from that. It's like the Eucharist. He gave him himself. If he gave us himself, like what else could we want? Right. We have the Eucharist. So going to Mass, like obviously on Sundays, but often, like really making that part of your life. And, going to confession frequently. Right. Going to adoration, as frequently as you can, but also having friends that are doing the same thing. So essential, because you need to have people that you can support and that are supporting you. And it needs to go both ways. And they have to be people that are also doing the same thing and living a sacramental life, but are normal. Like, don't be weird about it, enjoy the life God gives. It's everybody, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Just know what I'm saying. So, but it's the idea, like you are meant to flourish, and all of these aspects of grace are how you're going to flourish. And that's how you discern, because discernment is prayer. The actual discernment is just prayer. And the Lord will reveal all these things to you within this mode of the sacraments. And I mean, that's how I was open to be able to encounter these moments of discernment, because I was living a sacramental life. Right. And I had friends, we were all doing the same. We'd all just hang out, we'd go to a ball game or go out and like eat and things like that. But then also, let's go to confession, let's go to adoration, like things like that you have to have like all of that balance. It's so essential. But so that's the only way I was able to be open to it. But then also, like, if you like having a spiritual director for a time to help you kind of process and pray through things that you may need to do, right? But always knowing that relationship always goes back to God. It always goes
Right.
back to Christ, because the virtue of prayerfulness is that friendship with God,
Mm-hmm.
and cultivate that every day. That's so essential. And the thing is, like, you should think marriage is beautiful and think religious life is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Like, please,
Right, of course.
like you should. So that openness that you have to vocation is really just openness to prayer. Now, the Lord is going to use the people in your life and the things in your life. So, like, for me, it's like I did have an attraction to religious life.
Mm-hmm.
So, if religious life comes up and it's something that comes up in prayer that, like, kind of just you're thinking about, go look at some sisters,
Right. Right.
nothing's going to happen,
Right.
it's just a matter of, like, that openness and the encounter.
They're not gonna catch you.
No, I'm going to tell you, I'm a vocation
you
director. I'm going to
against-
tell you right now, I'm not,
Right. Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right. We're not
it's
gonna close the door and throw away
the key. Like you said, it's that free offering, but it's all that fruit of
Right.
prayer, because even the process of application to religious life, as you know, it's a process of prayer, of walking with people, and just going through every step along the way. And even once you enter religious life, it's a process of formation. There are years before you make your final profession.
Right.
In our community, it's 8 years until you're eligible
Wow.
for final vows. And what I love to tell people also is that the same God that brings you to religious life, and let's say you enter, does not leave you. He remains with you, right? So there's
Right.
no, like, fear that, he's dropping you there and you're by yourself. There's no fear of, like, there's just such anxiety about failure in young people today
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, what if I enter and I leave?
Right.
Then you made a good discernment and you prayed,
Right.
right? And that's there. Nothing you give God is wasted.
Right.
Like, nothing you give God is wasted. You just gave him everything. Like, you're going to receive everything in return, If that involves, discerning out of a community, like, praise God for that discernment. Praise God for the time you had with the sisters. Praise God for everything you're going to bring to everyone, like, through that discernment, and
Right.
through that listening.
And that sometimes can actually be part of God's plan.
Yes.
Right. To help us experience a little bit of what religious life would be, to try to take it more seriously and take something of that. If one has to discern out of a religious community or a seminary, you take that with you and you try to live your lay life in a more fervent way, looking up at the example of those others that you saw before,
Exactly.
Yeah. So to summarize, obviously a prayer life, but also openness of heart, right? So to be open in your heart, that's what you were saying, right?
Yep.
So not to shut off the voice of God
Yes.
in your heart, but try to be open to it. Now, I had a question, because in this podcast, I was speaking about the catechism before and after our interview here. And I tried to connect my interviews with something of what I was talking about. And just recently, I was speaking about society, how man is a sociable being. God created us to be in society, not to live as individuals, isolated.
Yes.
And then I was speaking about the common good of society, how there has to be a government or a state authorities with an authority given by God ultimately to preserve the common good of society. So connecting with religious life, I know that it's a little bit of a long shot, but how would you say that religious priests, consecrated men, consecrated women, would you say that they help, right, or they foster the common good of society, and in what ways?
Well, I mean, every way, obviously, but it's like, it's both on, like, even on just the natural plane, it's that witness of joy and unity is so essential. I mean, that's both natural and supernatural, obviously, but for someone just to see that there are people that can be living for, like, an undivided heart for something,
Right.
is so countercultural. And actually what's so needed, because that's what contributes to the common good, is knowing that we're actually able to live given over to something. Ultimately, God's will. That's, our heart longs for that. Every human heart longs for that. But the witness of consecrated people, consecrated men and women, of that undivided heart is so strong and necessary, because we offer this beautiful witness of just unity, and this witness of being given over and single-hearted. Obviously, supernaturally, it's like the graces are, like, immense,
Right,
and, like,
of
with the
course.
priesthood, I mean, the Eucharist, you can't even, that's supporting the world. But in, like, that interest of showing that, like, we belong to someone and we belong to God. That's one of the great privileges of wearing the habit, but like the people need to know, like the evil one scatters, right? That's like what he does, like confusion, he scatters. And that like division we see so much even within the media, and we see everything have all this division, and that's how he works. But if we're all within the body of Christ and we can witness to the fact that there is unity and there's flourishing within that unity, there's love within that unity, then that's a huge thing for you. People encounter that as authentic because it is, right? That's what their heart longs for. They long to be a part of a family. Everyone longs for that. That's why earlier I mentioned, like, that's a great gift I was given. Like, I knew I was part of a family. And we all long for that. And if all that we're seeing is that we're divided, everyone's angry, we're scattered, and we see it everywhere, like in our own families, in our friends' families, on the media, on TV, like that's like the mode of being. Whereas as consecrated people, we belong, we're single-hearted, and we are united within that single heart. And that's amazing. So even just, people, when they see something different about us, I'm wearing a habit, which is huge, obviously. But for someone to see me, and I'm a bride of Christ, and someone to see me, and like, even if they don't, they don't like
agree.
God. Yeah. Even if they don't like God, right? If they don't agree, like the thing is, like, they've thought of him, like they actually thought of God today and they might not have.
Right.
His presence, his being has crossed their mind in some way, even if their emotion is negative, he is not. Right. He is true. So he somehow graced their mind in some way, and that's a win to me.
Right.
you know?
Right. And also, in that same sense, religious bring to mind the idea that that the life is not just about this life, but there's something beyond it, right? We don't say exactly off the bat what it is, but there is obviously something beyond it. There's eternal life. There's God. There's something that is worth more than the success of this world.
Exactly.
And that is an important aspect of the common good, because the common good of society is the whole overall good of community as a whole and each individual, which includes a spiritual aspect, right? So the world tends to cut that out and forget about it, and make us purely materialistic and concerned about success and winning trophies and whatever. And the religious, I think, especially when one could have had a career, right? And you give up the career and some success for something that is completely supernatural, right? And I think that has to resonate to some extent, even to people who don't have faith.
Right, absolutely. It's the eschatological sign, as as the church says. It's like that sign of there is something more with certainty. I can tell you there is something more, and I stand for that, and I live for that. Like that's if that were not true, I would be crazy. With certainty, I can tell you there's more, and. Like heaven meets earth, and we in mass, you live that more, So that's just the amazing part, is that the common good is oriented towards something. It's like we're made for more, and if we can live within that unity as we desire with the church, we are going there.
Good, very good, very good. Well, so just to finalize a little bit this interview, is there would you like to share any special graces that you received, or stories that you experienced as a religious, or maybe in formation, or maybe just before entering religious life, that you would say were interesting or fun or whatever, attractive, whatever?
Well, one thing is that just it's funny, I mentioned when I was reading that banner and I was like, Dominican, I did not know what it meant to be a Dominican, Dominican order, right? So I have the unique distinction of being double Dominican,
right?
So I have that for me, which I love to say, but I didn't know what it meant to be a Dominican even when I entered. So I know it for many people, the process of discernment is different, and discerning charisms of communities and all of that. My process, as I mentioned, was that economy of love and how the Lord made me to love. But we learned about Dominican spirituality, in religious life, and you learn it and you get it, and it's attractive, and this whole idea of the truth, and it's there. But then it all changed me when I went to Rome, and I was working at the NAC, and it was actually
North American College.
Yes, the North American College, yeah. And mainly because it was just like that presence of being, I was actually in Rome during COVID, which is like the like
Ooh.
very,
It was
very
worse than in
different
the
time.
US, right? I think it was more radical.
Yes.
The policies.
Yes, the policies. I was there for when it was a lot of lockdowns and all of that.
Wow.
But the Lord used that beautifully in my life because there were no tourists in Rome. So I experienced a Rome without tourists and all the churches were open.
Wonderful.
So it was this moment where, when I first started, I was just like, I'm going to go see like all like the places you're supposed to see, like all the churches and like all these things, you're going to go see the Pantheon. You got to go see all these different things. Okay. But then it was the realization that, like I'm a religious in Rome right now. There is nobody in Rome right now. I'm living in the heart of the church, and it's my duty as religious to live in the heart of the church and to pray in the heart of the church. And so at that point, it was this amazing experience that's transforming like my daily life into like realizing like, who am I and what is prayer and what does that look like for me? I mean, this was like over like 10 years into religious life, And so for me, like that moment of openness and transformation was also the openness to knowing what it's like and what it means to be a Dominican. So you're actually being out of teaching and then like coming out of that is actually how then I saw why I'm a Dominican. Like I understood what Dominicans were. I understand by understanding why I personally am a Dominican, like my living of the charism and growing in that is actually really wonderful for me because it's just the realization that, I have my own love for Christ, and the relationship with him, but like there's always more. And there's always more for me just as a religious and me like as a person. And so the understanding is like, I love the truth. I want people to know the truth, but that zeal that I have is because St. Dominic knew the whole time, is because it's that relationship with the Dominican order that I like formed when I was there really like has kind of transformed my life in understanding myself. And so just like the continued like advice and just knowing for everyone to know that it's like your prayer life is always going to change. And to be open to that and never think that you like that you already know who you are and you already know like what's going on and it's going to happen to me again. I'm quite hopeful too that it'll happen again because I really do want to get holier and get better at this whole Christian thing. But yeah, it's just like that like powerful realization was huge and it just made my life so much better, and it wasn't like this moment of like a deep like pain, and whatever, but it was just this moment of just like, no, he wants more. I want more. This is who I am. And I'm open to that.
Wonderful.
And you never know when he's going to do it. It's a thing. So
Right.
just be open to it.
Right. And also if we get to heaven, we'll see that that's a bigger step yet. So to know ourselves, right?
I know it. Exactly.
So there's still more to know.
Yes, please.
Wow. Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Mercedes, for sharing your story and all these spiritual insights on religious life. It was great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It was a blessing.
Very good. And thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your time with us. Please share this episode with your friends. And if you can, please leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. May God bless you, and we will see you next time.